After watching the simulation on dissolving, let's try to test our knowledge about dissolving and connect the lessons together. Which of the following solids does not dissolve in water? Chalk. Salt and sugar both dissolve in water, but chalk does not. The second question. A liquid used to dissolve a solid is called a solute, a solvent, or a solution. The answer is a solvent. What is a mixture of a solute and a solvent called? Solution, precipitate, or suspension? If you go back to the previous video, you will find out that a mixture of a solute and a solvent is called a solution. And if the solvent is water, we call it an aqueous solution. Which of the following three options helps to speed up dissolving? Does adding more solid help, increasing the temperature, or decreasing the temperature? The correct answer is increasing the temperature, because more heat will help in breaking up the solute and speeding up dissolving. What happens when you break up a solid into smaller pieces? Does it speed up dissolving, slows down dissolving, or has no effect on dissolving? That should be an easy question because we already discussed it in question number 4. It will definitely speed up dissolving. When you break up a solid into smaller pieces, you decrease its surface area. True or false? False. Actually, when you break up a solid into smaller pieces, you increase the surface area because the smaller pieces will take more area than the solid before breaking it up. When salt dissolves in water, the water is then called a solvent. True or false? False. Water is a solvent, whether we dissolve salt in it or not. Water is one kind of a solvent, but it's not the only solvent. Remember, solvent is the liquid in which the solute dissolves in. What word is used to describe a solid that does not dissolve in solvent? We call the solid insoluble because it cannot be soluble in the solvent. It does not dissolve in a solvent. Insoluble solids are separated from a liquid by evaporation, chromatography, or filtering. The correct answer is filtering. If we are going to separate insoluble solids from liquid, we use filtering, whereby we add the mixture into this filter paper or funnel. The liquid goes down into the beaker and the solid remains in the funnel. Soluble is the opposite of insoluble. True or false? True, this is correct. The amount of solid that dissolves in a liquid is called the mixability, dissolvability, or solubility. The correct answer is solubility. In chemistry, we call the amount of solid that dissolves in a liquid the solubility. Which separating technique uses solubility to separate mixtures of colored dyes? The key word here is colored. The correct answer is chromatography. This is the technique used to separate mixtures of colored dyes. What word is used to describe a solution which will not dissolve any more of a solid? Indissoluble, saturated, or suspended? The correct answer is saturated. When a solution does not dissolve any more of a solid, this means that this solution is saturated. Only solids can dissolve a liquid. True or false? False. There are liquids that are miscible and they can dissolve. Not only solids dissolve in liquids. This equipment can be used to separate a soluble solid from a liquid. What separating technique is taking place? Evaporation, distillation, or chromatography? So you see this equipment, this apparatus, you have the Bunsen burner in the bottom, and above it is a beaker, and this beaker is being heated. The correct answer is evaporation. The Bunsen burner heats the liquid or the mixture inside that is found in the beaker, and then evaporation takes place. Water is the only solvent that exists. That's false. There are a lot of solvents. There are many kinds of solvents other than water. When a solid does not dissolve in a liquid, the insoluble solid is sometimes called a saturate, precipitate, or filtrate. The correct answer is precipitate. In fact, when a solid does not dissolve in a liquid, this solid precipitates at the bottom of the beaker. When salt dissolves in water, which picture best describes the arrangement of particles in the solid salt that is before dissolving? The third is the right answer, because in solids, the particles are very close to each other and they are not apart like in liquids and in gases. When salt dissolves in water, the salt particles fit in between the water particles. True or false? That is true. If you review the previous video, you will see an animation of how the solid particles fit in between the water particles or the liquid particles. The mixing and spreading of particles which makes dissolving possible is called differentiation, diffusion, or dispersion. When we mix and spread particles, making dissolving possible and easier, this is called diffusion. If you answered some questions incorrectly, you can go back to the previous simulation and watch the video again. This will help you in answering the question correctly and better understanding the process of dissolving.